Hello, friends. Welcome back this week to another Together We F.E.E.L panel. We are a little shorter on panelists than we expected. Our good friend Lynette was having some tech issues, so she unfortunately has not been able to join us today. But don't you worry, we're going to have all of her resources in our show notes because she's got great resources for caregivers. I'll talk a little bit about her here in a few minutes. And she's also been on the podcast with me. So the link to her podcast episode, along with her resources, will be in our show notes. So please go there. Lynette Weldon, she's a wonderful woman. She came to, I love her so much. And what she offers is so authentic to her story. She got exposed to caregiving first as a teenager. I think I'm going to get this right. This podcast will tell. I'm trying to draw back on that. And when she was watching her mom, go into caregiver mode. And then unexpectedly, about a decade later, her third child was born, her daughter with special needs. And so all of a sudden she was a mom with a child with special needs, as well as two older children that were a couple of years older. And that daughter is someone she's still caring for today as a grown adult. And so it's something that became a very huge part of her life, but also has become one of her greatest joys because of the resources that were lacking, that she sought out, that she created, and that she now shares with other people that are caregivers. So that is a really quick introduction to her caregiving story, not at all the full slate. Please, please, please take a look at her resources. Go back and listen to my podcast episode with her. She's also been on other panels with us. She's absolutely delightful. Follow her on all of your socials. You don't want to miss out all that she has. But I also have with me our good friend Erin Copelan today. Erin Copelan also came into, Lynette's trying again. Let's see if this works. All right, we're going to give it a whirl. Can you hear me, Lynette? We're going to add you to the stage. Can you hear us? Can you hear? I can hear you.
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm gonna put in the chat, share your resources real quick. This is why we're live. We can tell these stories real quick, and your story. And it will all be included in our show notes. Okay. Okay, that Lynette's texting. I just sent her a little chat. Hopefully she can see it. And we can just let her share out front. Because we can hear her. Technology, friends. It's just always a challenge, even when you think you know.
It's a blessing and a curse every day. So working in my massage studio, I take payments from people and I do the square payments, tap your card or dip your card, like whatever people want to do at the moment. Zelle, people do Zelle all the time. So it requires a Wi-Fi connection, all the things. And we always just sit there and hold our breath for a second.
Well, it worked today.
I had one client who, for some reason, their Zelle didn't go through. Like the Zelle always works instantly, and it took 6 hours. It would just show it as pending. And I was like I know you. It's like we're okay. And if I don't get it, I'll tell you when I get it. If I don't, we'll sort it out. But yeah, always the technology, blessing and a curse.
Okay.
You can hear me.
So, yes, I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yay, you can hear me. Nice to meet you, Erin.
I wish I knew sign language right now because I would sign Lynette. Lynette and I have not connected, but Melissa attempted to connect us and we just haven't. It's just time and things we haven't connected. So I was super excited for this afternoon.
Well, I'm glad you guys can hear me. I am Lynette Weldon, and I have been a caregiver for 36 years now, and for my daughter, and then watched my mom care for my dad when he was sick. And I also would consider, I talk a little bit about the invisible caregiver, basically, is what I call it. My husband was an addict and suffered from a mental illness. And I think that you are a caregiver in that situation too. And I never really put it together, you know. But, you know, my mission is just to empower caregivers to understand that it's okay to say no, that, you know, they don't have to do everything for everybody all the time and feel guilty when they don't. To kind of get out of that good girl mentality where, you know, we're taught to say yes and, you know, be there for everybody and not expect anything. So, yeah, so that's basically my mission and my story right there. Put this in the chat. How do you help people? Coaching.
Asking her a little question in the chat here. Have her elaborate. I know the answer to this, but you all don't know.
I am a caregiver coach. I work with women who are overwhelmed and burned out from their position. And excuse me, I do individual coaching, and I also have a caregiver course. And we have a private Facebook group on Facebook, Empowered Caregivers Community, where, you know, I'll do workshops monthly, daily strategies and tips, you know, to help them navigate their new reality, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Share all your one more chat here. All right. Isn't this fun?
Okay. You can, my website is LynetteWeldon.com. You can find me on Facebook under Lynette Weldon, or I also have another page, Coaching with Lynette. They're both caregiver related. You can find me on Instagram, and I'm back on TikTok. I was banned I think I was banned from TikTok for speaking the truth and just, you know, speaking our truth. And yeah, so I got banned, but I am back. You know, a 61-year-old woman who's a caregiver gets banned from TikTok. I don't, you know, that's one for the books.
That's where the world is today, folks. That's where the world is today. Oh my gosh. All right.
I know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take good care. Okay, Erin. I swear to Pete, we are going to get the two of you together someday. I've been trying for a year now. Oh my gosh.
I mean, these are like new goals for me. I'm like, I need to get banned now too.
I know. I like, that is so funny. It cracks me up so much because she is a truth teller. She will say, like, listen, it is time for you to put yourself first, damn it. And and you don't have to apologize. That she and I are so aligned in our messaging, and I think our spirit and personality are pretty similar too. And so, but that cracks me up because she is a truth teller, and she will not, because there's so many stigmas and narratives. And she shared 3 core components where she has shown up as a caregiver. And Erin, you and I have talked about this. So many times we don't see ourselves as caregivers until someone says that to us. You're like, what? You just like, I'm just taking care of my family. For you, and
just taking care of my husband, my child. No, I mean, she narrowed her definition even more for that concept of the invisible caregiver to being someone who is caring for addicts and things like that. But so many people are invisible because they just don't see themselves like that. And that's why I have enjoyed so much the recent surgeons. Is that the word I want?
A boon kind of
yes,
yeah.
in people talking about caregiving in these groups that are forming and these coalitions that are coming out, and more resources are coming, and really getting people to see themselves as the caregivers they are, which I think is amazing. Because until we find the awareness, that's like my number one pillar in all of my teachings is awareness. Until we understand and we become aware of what is happening, we can't break any of our patterns. So
yeah, that's just it. And I want to say right now to those listening, and thanks for staying with us. I know it's been bumpy, but I thought it was so important for you to be able to hear a little bit from Lynette. What she's doing is so important. And she has I love her so much. She's such a powerhouse. She's such she is a genuinely really content, happy person too, but she's fought for that. And she's found her way from that. And she didn't just throw in the towel and decide to see her life as just she saw the choices. The 3 pillars that I've really discovered that I operate by are: you are worthy just because you are. Your value does not ebb and flow or change based on how much you produce or who you are, what your titles, your roles are. You are, so you're valuable and you're worthy. And you get to choose. So those that your value, you're worth the time, your identity is not wrapped in these titles and roles. Go back to those character traits and that choosing part. And I think that choosing part, when we get hit with these roadblocks, and this is where I'm going to segue into your story, Erin. We don't see life as a series of choices. We see life as, this is what's been thrust upon me, so this is what I must do. And we can lose sight of the choices within that, because we as women, we just go all in. We're going to make sure that person we're caring for gets the best possible care. We're giving all of our energy to this. Everything else gets pushed aside. And many times, too many times, that includes us. And we believe the lie that it's selfish to put ourselves first, to make sure our cup is filled. We feel guilty if we do. And no one stops to tell us so many of the times, if we don't take care of ourselves and we don't fill our cups, we won't be around to care for these people. And if we are, not in a way that we want them to remember us or anybody else in our lives. So talk to me about that moment. You're in your late 30s and boom, your husband gets this serious diagnosis that has led you into years of caregiving. But then along the way, there's been other caregiving that's come up for you with other family members, and also kind of expectations for you around how to navigate that, both your own expectations and their expectations. But let's start with that late 30s you, that when Jerry gets his diagnosis and you're just going all in.
I mean, you said it. I went all in. I didn't ask. Eventually I did, but for the most part, I did not. I started researching. I started navigating. I was making phone calls. I was calling centers. I was trying to figure out what kind of cancer he had, what it even meant, like things like primary cancer and secondary cancer. And I have a story in my book that's really about some of the doctors you encounter, but I had a page of typed up questions, and we were interviewing transplant centers. And the question at the top of my list was, he had liver cancer. And I was like, is his cancer primary or secondary? I didn't know what that meant. No idea.
Yeah.
And so it's the first question that I asked the surgeon, and he said, "Oh, you're one of those." And that right there was my journey of the ups and the downs. And I was like, crap, but like I didn't ask any more questions. Like he shut me down. He shut me down. I did not ask a single question. But I also, and thankfully, my husband Jerry agreed with me. We got in the car and he goes, "Well, we're not getting a transplant there." We didn't even have to talk about it, because I was like, if this is how you are, but basically in the sales room,
Sure.
So what they're
Absolutely.
doing is
Where I still
selling
get to
us their
decide whether I'm
services.
coming back to you or not.
Yeah. I'm not going to let you cut him and
Yeah.
pull out a football-sized organ and shove another one. Like, why would I trust you with that if you are so disrespectful? But that is also how I showed up in that moment. It's also a very clear indicator, which I can only see in hindsight, of how sick I was already, how severe my codependency was, how badly I needed to try to control things so that I felt safe, and all of that but that control. And that's how, I mean, I'm a damn good caregiver. I'm really, really good at it. But in the more recent experiences of it this year, it has looked a lot different.
Yeah.
Because I knew if I kept showing up that way,
Sure.
I was probably going to die. I was going to get really, really sick.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's what, we just go all in and we abandon ourselves kind of recklessly, not giving thought to the fact that like these stressors, this exhaustion, this total focus on someone else and not paying attention to the cues my body need for basic care, make sure I've eaten, gotten outside, done some breathing, moved my body. Am I feeding myself well? Am I taking 5 to 10 minutes at a time here and there for my own quiet time? These little things that keep our nervous systems level, that fill our bodies and souls, that tend to our emotional, mental, and spiritual and physical health, because they're all connected. We just throw those, and then it usually takes some kind of breakdown to get our attention that we ourselves need the assistance. And, sadly, it's not uncommon, especially in those that are a little older, for the caregiver to pass first, because that is such a tragic consequence, or they pass soon after they've lost. I've seen both cases in my family. I saw a scenario in my adopted family where the grandpa, he passed first because he had been kind of quiet, tending to grandma, who had things going on with dementia, and later we found out Alzheimer's, that he wasn't telling us about, and he'd been tending to, and he, in the midst of all this, had his own issues. He was diabetic, and these things had been with him his whole life, but the stressors of all of this took him first. And it wasn't until after he was gone we even knew the depth of what was going on with grandma. And then later, just a couple of years ago, with my father-in-law, he had his own health issues, but had been caring for my mother-in-law until about the last 15 months of her Alzheimer's journey, where it was time to put her in a assisted living that could care for her 24 hours a day. She passed, and he had a stroke 3 weeks later, and we lost him, 4 months after that. And so these stressors that happen, these men were both in their 80s and had preconditions, but so much of this stress that we carry in our bodies, don't think it won't catch you when you're younger either. And so what both Erin and Lynette are going to offer you in their own ways, they do it in a different way, and you get to try both on to see who meets you where you need, and maybe you decide to incorporate both of them. But they have, because of their differing backgrounds and experiences within caregiving, they approach it differently, but they also have some very common things. And so look at both of them in the ways that they approach it, and see what feels and sounds most supportive to you. But yeah, it's that. So when was that point that you were like, how many years into it were you before it was like, I cannot go on like this, and there's nobody here asking me if I need help?
When I actually realized it, because there's a difference between when it was happening and then
for
when
sure.
I realized it.
Well, tell both. So, talk about when it was happening, and then talk about when it caught up to you and you actually realized it.
I mean, when it was happening, I was just so depleted and so exhausted. Like, there was nothing left of me. And I don't even know if I saw that until looking back. So there was no part of me that could judge anybody for not helping me, for shaming myself for not asking for help. It was just like, it took every bit of effort I had to feed us, get him to appointments, get myself to my job, do all of the things. And it wasn't until 2 years after his transplant, when I started writing my book, that I kind of started coming out of it. So that's 2 years after his transplant. Now, he had cancer he got on the transplant list. He was on the list for 8 years.
Wow.
Okay. So we're talking like basically a decade for me to even be able to start thinking about these things, which is why I get really excited talking about it now, because let's say I published my book in 2022. So here we are, even in 2025, and things are still like, they're little mini revelations. Like, oh my gosh, I see this so clearly. Oh my gosh, I see this pattern. So, oh my gosh, I see what it is we need. Oh my gosh, I see what it is we need to do. This is what I didn't know. This is what I learned. This is what I needed. And yes, there are the parts of, yes, you need to feed yourself. Yes, you need to go to the doctor and do all of those things. But one of the most recent lessons that I learned, and I'm still mastering my communication of it, so your audience gets to roll with me on it. But like, I read, a caregiver was talking recently, and they said, I'm afraid I'm going to pass before my wife, who has dementia. And I'm afraid there isn't going to be anyone able to care for her the way that I do. It's like their biggest fear. And while, yes, I understand that and empathize with that, I also very much realize that it is the patient's journey. It is the patient's journey. And as caregivers, we take this responsibility for how their life turns out. So we are not taking into consideration how they lived their life, anything that they may or may not have set up for their care, I mean, without judgment, without shame, but we don't take any of that into consideration, and we put it all on ourselves. To live our own journeys and somebody else's. And when you think of it that way, like, how can you live somebody else's journey for them? How can you do that? And my example for this, because I realized also that all of my lessons are just life lessons, are just delivered to me through caregiving, because apparently I wouldn't have seen them any other way. So, my grandfather passed away in August, so just almost 2 months ago. And my dad and I were kind of co-caregivers for him, but I was like administrative person, like nitty-gritty of things, and dad drove to appointments, took him out to dinner every night. So we had different duties. He was 89 when he passed, and so he was failing plateau. So I was like, okay, I got to organize it. I got to set it all up. So I had palliative care set up. I'm like, it's going to be hospice. He said he wanted to die at home. I had it dialed in. I did the research. I called the people. I talked to doctors. I'm on my chart. I like all the things. The Erin that I just talked to you about at the beginning of our chat, she showed up.
She's back.
She's back.
Oh man.
And he died a completely different way. I was like, we are here. And he's like, guess what? I'm going to do this. A complete totally unforeseen circumstances. He ended up in the hospital, which he said he'd never want to do. I don't want to be in the hospital. Then he asked to go to the hospital. He ended up in like a rehab to try to get him home. And that's ultimately where he passed. And none of it was orders. And until the day he died, I'm on the phone calling, like, I need long-term care. I need assisted living. Like, what's he going to do? Because he couldn't go. Like, I was trying to figure it out. Yeah. And it was his journey. It was not mine to figure out. It wasn't mine. He had a plan, and his life was lived out according to his plan, not what I wanted for him.
Yeah. Let's stay there for a minute. Yeah. Let's stay there for a minute. That is so hard. I'm going to throw a little, I connect with that so much. I desperately, there was a assisted living home after, before my mother-in-law had died, that we took my father-in-law to in the fall, that I desperately, and this was probably 10 months before, probably 6 months before his stroke and 10 months before he passed. We didn't know any of that was coming. I mean, he'd had some mini strokes. We knew, there were things, he wasn't in perfect health. We still thought we had another, I don't know. I think if you would have asked any of us, we're like, yeah, we probably got dad another 5 to 7 years. I mean, that's what we really thought. So there was this place that we took him to right before Christmas, because we ended up bringing him up, spending Christmas with right before Christmas with my adopted family, taking him to this place before we went and did Christmas with our kids. And I desperately wanted him to end up in this place. And they also had space for my mother-in-law for however much time she had left, where he could walk across to the other side of the complex and visit her. It would give him his own apartment, but yet there would be activities there and people to engage. And I just so badly wanted him to do this, and he just didn't want to do it. He wanted to keep her where she was. He wanted to stay in his house. He wanted, even though she was not getting the care any of us wanted for her, it was still with familiar people in a familiar place in the town that they had spent their whole marriage in and their college in. And I was trying everything to try and convince him. And my kids and my husband were like, babe, you gotta let it go. I just had to release it. I'm like, he has a plan. It's just like what you said. It is our job at the end of the day to honor their wishes. We can suggest things. We can lay out things. We can point things out. But at the end of the day, it is our job to make sure they're safe. But beyond that, if they're safe, and basic needs are being met, then it is our job to honor. And it is so hard when you're like, I know this will be better for you. So I relate, and I think a lot of us hit that. That is so hard. Yeah. So
I mean, we're there to, yes, we do the tasks, but we're there to hold the space and just try to soften that journey for them. And that it's hard to balance. Yeah. It's hard to balance those two, but that's, that's where it comes in at the end. My grandfather's time with us too, I realized just the condition he was in. There was a period of time that I thought he would be able to come live with us. And then his health just deteriorated to a point where I went, you know what? Yeah. I can't. I physically can't do this, and I emotionally cannot do this. And it just ended up that he passed in the nursing home. But that was a really, really painful admission that I had to make, that, should I have? Maybe. Would that have been like lovely? Absolutely. Like, all of the beautiful things that you wish for, but there was also that knowing in my gut that it would have broken me. And then what good am I to him or anybody else?
Yeah. And to
my
yourself,
husband or my parents or my clients or my, the caregiving people I serve here, like it. Yeah. So, but it was really, there were a lot of tears involved in that, and talking to my family, and
And, and I think that just shows that we're human, because you have all these resources and all these tools, and you and I talk about this all the time. Sometimes we forget that those are for us too. Like, we created them out of our own experience, out of what we know we needed, what supports us, what works, what we wish we would have had, 20, 30 years ago. And yet we find ourselves in these circumstances where someone else or even our own selves have to remind ourselves, oh yeah, those are for me too. Oh yeah, those things apply to me too. And bring ourselves back home to that. When someone comes to you and they're like, I know I need to take better care of something, but I don't know how. I don't have time. Where do you start when someone's just at that kind of, oh my gosh, point? And where do you meet them in a way that feels, okay, I think this is possible?
I mean, the first thing in my journey, like I wrote my book.
Yeah.
And I wrote my book. I actually brought a copy with me today because I never bring it on our panel. So here's my book. Welcome to Caregiving. And this, I'm so bad at naming things. Like I get so literal. Like these are the things that caregivers never talk about. But it's not a how-to guide, which people wrote in the reviews like, oh, I thought it was going to be a guide. But this is like a love story. This is the You're Not Alone book. There was another human going through these things as well. This is the book that will validate you, that will help you understand where you are so that you can ground yourself. So it's that awareness, like where are you? What are you doing? Where do you want to be? What is happening around you? It's the awareness.
Yeah.
The second thing that I created, which I did this year, was my caregiving archetype quiz.
This is my favorite thing you've done.
I love it so much. And it's exciting. There's over 100 people that have taken the quiz.
I love this so much.
Which I love. And
the links to all this will be in the show notes, guys. Don't worry. And she's going to tell you where you can find it. But yeah, about, I really wanted to get to this today. I want you to talk about the archetypes because this, man, I did this just out of curiosity. I'm kind of in between, elder, one set of elder parents has passed already, but we've got more come. I mean, like we're not out of it. We're just in between, so to speak. So I was curious to see where I was. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I also found I was one way for one set of family members and another way for another set. So also my role in the family determined my archetype in the different. So I wasn't the same archetype all the time either.
Yeah. And that's one of the things in my book. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's like, it's never the same way twice.
Yeah.
It's never the same way twice. How we show up, how other people show up, it's never the same way twice. And so the archetypes flow that way. But so I love my animals. I love my animals in the world. And so I generated 4 archetypes. There is the desert tortoise, which is like
Katie, I know.
The desert tortoise.
The tree trimmer is here now. It's that kind of day today. Happy Monday. He's trimming my palm tree out in the front yard because it's supposed to rain tomorrow. And he called an hour ago to see if he could come now. And I said, well, I'm going to be taping my live YouTube show. Just don't knock on my door. But alas, you can hear the saw. Desert tortoise. You got your shell. You're going to pull in. You're going to hiss and snap at the people that come to try to help you. The barn owls. And like, I noticed these folks, how this first started was when I was in hospital waiting rooms, because I spent a lot of time in waiting rooms waiting for surgeries to be done. And I'd see people that were just kind of there together and they were very quiet. And one person would kind of fly off and come back with coffee, and one would fly off and go to the bathroom and come back. And it was like this nice little ecosystem, these barn owls. And then we have the meerkats, and which I just love so much because the collective noun for a meerkat is a gang. And I just think it's so appropriate because you've seen it and you know these families, and maybe you're in this family that like everybody's there all the time and totally involved, which can be amazing. And sometimes it's a giant pain in the ass. It takes a lot of navigation when there's a lot of people there. And too many trying to lead.
And then the fourth one I added after my book, which kind of surfaced as part of my grandfather's, my caregiving experience with him. And that's the ostrich. And that's kind of like you know what? I did not want to do this. I'm just going to stick my head in the sand. I will throw some money at the problem. Like, I will help you to call me on the phone and tell me all the things, but I don't want the day-to-day of it. Not everybody is cut out for the day-to-day of it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the quiz gives like insights into the archetype, like the things that are your glimmers, the things that give you challenges. And then I include in the results like some action steps, gentle action steps that you can take just to lean into your archetype and kind of soften that. And they're different for each of the 4. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's so eye-opening. And but it also really, it lets you know where you are and how you are. And then it helps you like, and then you get resources determine, how do I work within that? Or how do I like, if I feel like I'm needed to shift in a little different direction, what are some resources or ways? Or how do I ask for support within it? Or I think the really important thing, if there's a sibling situation where you're multitudes of you, take this archetype and then communicate with each other about your archetype roles and how that's going to fit into the situation of caring for the parents or the child or the grandparents or the sibling. I mean, whatever it is that you're working together on, boy, this is so valuable and giving you a sense, because we don't need we can't have one of all the things.
Right.
And so from there, the communication might be, you know what, I think I can lean into this direction if you can lean, and you have communication so that all the different spots and places are filled. So it's super helpful for you sibling groups up there, or aunts and uncles, however family dynamics work, where the family's kind of coming in, but also making sure you're on the same page and you're not having 5 people lead in 5 different directions, because that just creates chaos in a situation that's already really stressful. And just gives you some really good resources. You've also got a Substack now where you've got your Wednesday.
Yes.
This is my other favorite thing you're doing, is your Wednesday. And this is a great way too, to just tap in and hear from Erin and hear what she's learning. So that's on her Substack as well. But so if someone's coming to you for the first time, what are you going to say? Where are you going to meet them at? Are you going to be like, I've got this book? Because we were on a panel, literally last week's panel, where we had a woman on the panel with us who went and bought Erin's book as soon as we were done for her mother, because her mother's in the midst of caring for her father right now. And she's like, oh, my mom needs this. And I think Erin's probably going to follow up with her, because I think the archetype could become really helpful down the road for them as well, as they start doing more together. But it's an example of that. But so somebody comes to you, do you ask a few questions to kind of determine, I think you need this first, this book and this workbook first? Or sometimes maybe it's, okay, this, but this archetype's really going to give you direction. Is it a case-by-case basis?
Right now the offerings they are light and they are playful. I have my first more in-depth course coming out in November. That is my Back to Basics course. That's more,
yes.
Okay, you are overwhelmed and I'm going to help you get to a place of calm.
Yeah.
And this is how this is how you got here. This is what we're going to do about it. And you're going to walk away with your own basically personal chart of the things that work for you, so that you can put it anywhere. And when you're all overwhelmed, you're like, I don't even know what to do for myself. You can be like, oh, here's my sheet. These are the things that work for me.
Yeah.
So that is coming. But the quiz, it's super light. It's super easy. It's
actually really fun. It's very playful and fun.
And so it gives you a little insight into me, because you get a flavor of my silly effervescence. If you're in that place where you do feel like you want a little bit of validation and you want a deeper knowing of my journey, the book is fantastic.
Yeah.
I did, it's an Amazon bestselling book, which I'm super proud of. It debuted as a #2 bestseller. I did it in the paperback, Kindle, and I recorded the audiobook. So if you'd like to listen, if you're like overwhelmed and you're listening while you're driving people to appointments, get the audiobook. And
or maybe
and
you take that walk because you have the neighbor come over and sit with the person you're caring for. I'm giving you ideas of how to get help out there, people. And you go and you listen to this because sometimes we just want to know that someone understands our situation. How does the workbook work within that? What is the workbook like?
The handbook is actually getting a little bit of a revamp. So the actual physical handbook isn't going to be renewed in 2026, and I'm working on like a digital version of that. So that's going to be a new little something coming next year. And then the thought just left me. In my newsletter, that's also super easy. The Substack, if you want the audio version of that, the Substack subscription's only $7 a month. Again, if you're the audio person and you like my giggles. Yeah. So, but that's like, I love to write. And so that's my podcast. That is my real time. This is what's happening. This is like what I learned this week on this journey and how I'm applying it. And so I call it the Hump Day newsletter. It's like getting you over the hump for the week. And sometimes it's just playfulness, but it's really a lot of lessons that I'm learning because I didn't have anybody who shared their lessons with me. Yeah. So I love how you opened this with talking about Lynette and her first exposure to caregiving was with her mom. And it made like my brain, the tape rewind in my brain. I'm like, when was my first exposure? And I remember them, but nobody talked about it. Nobody said, this is hard. I'm feeling this. Like they just did their things and did not talk about it, which is why it's the things nobody ever talks about.
Yes.
Because nobody told me.
So I
wanted to tell you.
Yes. And I think that's so important. I think it goes back to another generational narrative that we find. The generations of women before us who just slugged along, and men too, but many times the women, many times they end up being the ones in the caregiver roles for a lot of reasons. A lot of societal expectations, gender narratives, all of those things. They never complained. They kept their nose down. They didn't think it was appropriate to complain. And they just kept, and but then you look at like, gosh, and sometimes they did it with their own flair and found their joy along the way. And sometimes they were very irritable and drawn out and maybe not, didn't get to live the life they thought they were going to get to live and just thought this was their cross to bear, so to speak, and didn't really have anyone to share with them or tell them or even make them aware that there's choices within that and support within this that you can find and ask for to not have to carry this burden yourself. And also don't feel guilty about, like, there's so much guilt involved in this whole thing that is just can be so harmful to us in so many levels.
Though, interestingly enough, I just finished listening to When the Body Says No. Which is a really good book. And at the end of the book, I need to go back and listen to it again. But there is a quote in there that says, if you have a choice, if you have to make a decision, choose guilt over resentment. Because resentment will kill you.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think that's it's just another example. All these things are connected and they will take us out in one way or another. And that's why I on a different lens, I'm like, get curious rather than judgmental. And you might be, and curiosity and comfort. And when I'm not talking about comfort in we're actually comfortable, and comfort in like, I know I can handle it. No one else can do it the way I could. It's just better if I do it. All those things. And we're unwilling to get outside of that and see what's possible. We get very attached to, they can't do it the way I can do it. Okay. Is that
which might be true, but that doesn't mean that anybody's gonna die.
Exactly. That doesn't mean that your way is the only way. It'll be just
if you don't do it.
Yes.
It's gonna be fine.
It will, and
if it's not
releasing that.
fine, maybe it's somebody else's lesson to learn.
Sure. Oh, that's good. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things within it. So releasing, so it's another reminder of, I love that. Choose the guilt over the resentment. I think that's such a powerful thing. And also know that the guilt is from a narrative that we've been sold that is not true. You are not selfish. It is okay if this sucks. It is okay if you are grieving. It is okay if you are mad about it. It is okay because you didn't see this coming. And it probably feels very unfair. But I go back to where I talk to women about all the time. Allow yourself to feel these things. Don't stuff them.
Yes.
Don't push them away because they are living in your body still. You're just not dealing with them. But these are all very natural. That's why there's no such thing as good or bad or right or wrong emotions. Emotions are clues that there's something in you that needs to be felt and moved through and not acknowledged, given the space to breathe and be heard. So give yourself the room to do that. And again, and find that space for you and reach out. Most people either don't know you need help or are afraid to ask you because they've been shot down before. And many times they're waiting and willing. And if they can't help,
they just don't know.
They just don't know. They just don't know. And so when you start reaching out, and if you ask someone and they say, no, they can't help in that way, ask them how they can help. Okay. So what does work for you? Because I'm needing support here. So what does work for you?
And if they can't, maybe they're not your person for that thing.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean that no one is your person.
Yes.
They may not have the capacity to hold space for you. They just may not have the capacity. They just might not have it.
Yeah. Because I think too, sometimes in these journeys, I know this to be true because I've seen it myself in my own experiences. There are going to be people that disappoint you, but there are also going to be people that really surprise you in the best way when you give them the opportunity to show up for you and support you. I mean, we had so many examples of that. These people that were impactful in the final months of my in-laws' life that we didn't see coming, that were so important, that would so matter, that experiences that happened within our different lives that allowed different ones of us to show up in a way we didn't know we would have been able to 6 months ago. And they all mattered, and they all gave us really unique experiences with that loved one that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So you're going to be surprised both ways, but just because the first person may not be available or may disappoint you. And, it's one of those things, this can be tricky, especially in family dynamics. If you go at someone saying, you should, that's never going to work. You don't have any idea of that's just not going to work. It doesn't matter if you think they should, that will not be received well. And so whether you are, and it's not about who's right or wrong in the situation. It's about getting to the person or people who can support you. And that other thing, and so releasing that, you can be disappointed about it and even express frustration in a healthy way, but hanging on to that and just keep going back. I see families all the time go back to the same person expecting a different result. Move forward. You're not going to get a different result from them. You're going to keep banging your head against the wall of frustration. Move forward and keep looking for that person who can show up. And then you can decide later, when the dust settles, how you proceed with that other relationship and if there's other boundaries you need to discuss. But in the moment, sometimes we get really hung up on what we think other people should be doing. I'm guilty of it myself. And we get stuck there instead of like moving forward. All right, they won't be able to show up that way. Where do we go next? Because you get to have that support. You don't have to be the martyr who suffers through this alone and carries the torch and all these things that we wear as a badge of honor. Wearing yourself out and then trying to make other people in your life feel guilty about all that you're doing and all that they're not, that's no way to live. that leads to bitterness and resentment. And what are you really gaining from it? It doesn't lead to a place.
We have to find the joy.
Yes. Yes.
You have to find the joy. And there can be joy in these difficult times, and there can be joy with the sadness. And we've talked about this, I know, in a recent panel, because you always bring so many amazing people together from all different walks of life. And that's the common thread of everybody you bring together is the support will show up, and we get to find the moments of joy, and we get to find the moments of peace. And no matter what we've been through, we can always find that somewhere. You just have to maybe sometimes get a little quiet.
Yeah. You know, boy, get a little quiet. I mean, if nothing else right now, if you're feeling like, oh gosh, this is me, I really could use these resources that Erin and Lynette have talked about today. I don't know where to begin. Well, begin with getting quiet for a few minutes and letting your mind settle, and then then go to the link in our show notes and just take that first step. You know, it might be going to the website. It might be reading Erin's book. It might be reaching out to Lynette and seeing if you can have a one-on-one with her and have a conversation. It might be taking the archetype and inviting others to take the archetype too, if you're doing a group care. I mean, just like get quiet with yourself and give yourself a chance to decide, okay, tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening before I go to bed, put it in your calendar. Tomorrow at lunch, when they're taking it.
Curious about it.
Yes.
Come at it from a place like curiosity and play. You're not trying to fix yourself. It's not a fixing thing. It's like, it's a space to learn. It's a space of wonder. It's a space to play. It's a space to get curious, to see what the possibilities are for you. It's about softening everything.
Softening and releasing that idea that something's wrong with you because you're feeling this way. There's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't mean you love anybody any less. This is just really hard. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You know, you and I could always talk about these things all the time, but why don't you share with people where they can find you? And you have been in super, you know, this is what's so amazing about how life works. Erin, in a very tough season with her grandfather, has been at her actual creative prowess the last 6 months. The things that she has learned and that she continues to add to her resource box for you all is really tremendous. And it just goes to show you what's possible. Life is multifaceted and nuanced. And you can have these times of sorrow and grief and also these times of great joy and creativity all at the same time. Yeah. All right, my friend, tell people where they can find all of this magic with you.
You can find, actually, I have to add my Substack, but you can find my book, you can find the quiz, you can find my newsletter, all of my goodness on my website, erincopelan.com, Erin with an E, Copelan, no D. And the Substack is also my name, Erin Copelan. I have to add the link to my website, but you can, if you go to Substack, Erin Copelan, and you'll find it. Yeah. I also love that about Lynette. I'll share that with her. I'm like, another person who she is Lynette, and I forget her last name right now, but
Weldon.
Lynette Weldon, LynetteWeldon.com. Yeah. And I was like, yay, Lynette, go to LynetteWeldon.com, go to ErinCopelan.com.
Absolutely. Keep it simple. Keeping it simple. All right. Well, people out there, women out there listening, and these resources are for everybody, honestly. Yes, my focus is always women, and women do tend to be a lot of our caregivers, but I can tell you from my own experience that men fall into this role too. I mean, my husband and his siblings, all of us are involved in these things. And I think it's very important. These resources are for everybody, and they're for everybody that finds themselves in this role. Also, if you don't think you're a caregiver, and if you are a teenager, you're a college, caregiving has no age. We think so many times when we're caring for our parents, maybe we're 15, 16 years old, or even 10 or 12, and we're taking care of our parent. You're a caregiver. and there are resources out there to support you. So whether you are 10 or 90 or anywhere in between, and you are taking care of someone who needs extra care in any way, you're a caregiver. It doesn't matter if they're a family member. Most of the time, our caregivers are not paid. Now, there are more resources out there now through some initiatives where you actually can get monetary support when you are caregiving for people. But many times, this is part of that invisible work that we've talked about on here before, that my friends, Dr. Doreen McCauley and Dr. Janelle Wells talk about. And it's obviously so valuable, but you're valuable and you get to live a life too. And your life doesn't have to be completely absorbed into this person's life. It's good and healthy for you to have a life outside of this. So get these resources, get the support you need, know that you are loved. And if you're it's okay to call yourself a caregiver. You can be a wife and a caregiver of that person, a sister and a caregiver, a parent and a caregiver, a granddaughter or grandson and a caregiver, a neighbor and a caregiver. Those things can all be true. Any last thoughts for those people listening out there?
Oh my goodness. You got it good there at the end, Melissa. Anybody can be a caregiver, and you're loved.
Yeah.
You're loved. It's safe to access the resources. It's safe to play in the resources. It's safe to have a life that you want to have. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's
and
okay.
laugh a little along the way.
And it can be somewhere in between. It's okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you as always, my friend. Thanks earlier to Lynette.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Always a pleasure having you. Go to those show notes, listeners, here at Embracing Layers here on our YouTube. Get those. And if you can't find it for some reason, go to embracinglayers.com, fill out that contact form, say, Melissa, where are those resources? I need that information that Erin and Lynette have. We are here to support you in this. Take good care of yourselves. Thank you, my friend, as always, for being with me. And you all have a great week.
My pleasure.